studio by Professor Sipho Sepe, political analyst. We also have Mr. Chris Malamecha, the Sanko GP chairperson. Also Mr. Dan Mufugeng, Secretary of the Stalwarts and Veterans Affairs at the PAC. We also have in studio Ngwane Wangwane, COPE Committee chairperson. On the phone line, we also are joined by the ANC NEC member, Mr. Ronald Lamola. A very good evening to you all, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
I'll start with Mr. Lamola on the phone line because we only have a few minutes with you. Mr. Lamola, good evening to you. And just talk to us about some of the backlash that we've seen in social media coming up from different opposition parties saying that they feel the ANC might be undermining somewhat the work of the commission that's actually busy dealing with this land issue and setting out public hearings.
No, such opposition parties are hypocrites. For example, the DA has also already stated its own position. I have engaged with the DA on many public debates, and one of them was at NISA, where Professor Sipho Sepe was, amongst in TV and many platforms. The DA has stated its position. Why must the ANC not state its position and what it thinks should happen? We are not undermining the process. We are contributing to the process, and that's why you will have seen our members participated in the process and so forth. And we're also not second-guessing the process. We're saying when the report comes, it has become clear, and now is the tail end of the process. This is almost the last week of the process. It's clear what the people want, and we have to respond to the call of the voices of the people. And we are going to make our contribution to that parliamentary process. When the committee reports, we will welcome the report and hear the views of the people. How does that undermine this process?
Well, Mr. Lamola, we'll just come to studio to get some of the reactions as well from members of different parties. Professor, let me start with you. Do you think that this announcement will have any bearing on the public hearings that are still scheduled for the Western Cape this weekend?
I think there's a bit of hypocrisy on this matter, as Ronald does indicate. We've been in public platforms where the matter has been debated, and the DA has also been a participant. And as it participates, it expresses its own views on that matter. And I think one must also understand that you have public hearings where you have citizen participation in the democracy, but you also have parliamentarians who have to do their own work. And what these hearings were supposed to do is to hear the other side rather than to have people speaking on behalf of the others. But what is interesting is really the notion of a backlash, because that backlash makes no sense because the ANC's decision on land expropriation was taken in December. Mm-hmm. But it could be that the backlash comes because some had hoped that given that the ANC is also a home of multiple contradictions and where there are various perspectives and views. For instance, if you look at the statements that have been made by the likes of Jeremy Cronin, they were triumphalist in stating that the ANC is not going to change the constitution. But the ANC, based on its resolution, supported the EFF, and secondly, based on the hearings, it has decided to clarify its position. But the clarification comes as a result of also probably the new data that is emerging from the people. Because if you rely on WhatsApp, on Facebook and the media, you'll find yourself so disconnected from the people. Mm-hmm. And so those who had hoped that some in the ANC who may have been captured by white monopoly capital would have frustrated the process. What is emerging is that the ANC is sobering up to the reality that says that this, we should state our position unambiguously, that it cannot be right that in a country of our birth, black people remain trespassers. It cannot be right that we talk about a revolution when a revolution is not based on land. And it cannot be right when you have such a discouraging statistics that indicates that the land is still in white hands.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Malamacha, let me hear your voice on this. Do you also agree that the ANC is just acting on some of its elective conference resolutions?
No, thanks. Yeah, let's take this opportunity also to say, as a civic movement, we were part of taking that resolution. So it was a matter of time to implement it. We totally disagreeing with the DA, but at the very same time, we understand that their opposition party, their duty is to oppose anything which is progressive that can change the life and the living condition of the masses. They are aware that from all the public hearings, people are saying, let's do this way, and we are about to achieve, we are going to share the land. Now what they are trying to do as they normally do. They want to run to court, they are threatened with everything. But at the end of the day, one is very pleased that the ANC is going to implement the resolution which is pro-poor. Then the land is going to the masses, and the masses will now test the value of land. And from there, we will all of us be happy, and we shall have lived the Freedom Charter.
So, former Major General Mofokeng, are you happy with the ANC's resolution, the announcement made by the ANC president last night?
First and foremost, I must emphasize that the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania never reacted to any other party's program. But nonetheless, we are happy of the belated acknowledgement of the ANC on the centrality of the question of the land. We, as the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, that's why we say Izwele to Africa, we have been advocating the question of the land restoration to the African people for the last 59 years. Now the ANC, after 63 years, it is now that they are talking about the land. We are very happy. We are now speaking the same language. But commenting on the review parliamentary committee, it will be really immature. It will be premature, actually, to comment on the process that is still going on. But I must emphasize and appreciate that the language on the ground, the language of the people is the language of the people, of the PAC, of the land restoration to the African people.
And to you, what is COPE's stance on this matter?
Oh, yeah, thanks very much. You know, after the February motion of expropriation without compensation was tabled in Parliament and supported, Parliament further gave mandate to the Constitutional Review to go ahead and look at if it's right to get the Section 25 amended or not. That process is continuing today. And as I'm speaking, although it is at its last leg, it is still continuing. And in terms of the mandate, that committee must, by the end of August, go and report back to Parliament and say, Parliament, this is what we found, this is what the people are saying, this is what all the other people are saying, not only the public, even other interested parties. This is what they are saying. And then, therefore, based on that, this is the recommendation. And after that, then we can now, as Parliament, go and make a decision. Say, it is now that this process has now come to its end. This is the decision. Mm-hmm. We have not reached that point. And Parliament itself has not even said to listen, and the committee has not even started with its recommendations. It is on that reason that we're saying it is premature of the president to announce what the party feels. We don't have a problem that the party can have decisions and so on, but this is a parliamentary process, and there are parliamentary procedures that has to be followed. You don't just have to jump.
Well, Mr. Lamola, let me just give you a chance to give your closing comments, as we do have to let you go.
No, thank you. And we agree with the fact that there is a parliamentary procedure, and our MPs will participate in that parliamentary procedure. So that what we have done is to signal to the country, because remember, also have a responsibility of giving clarity and also certainty in terms of our policy position. So we can't just be mum when the whole country is debating an issue. So we had to clarify. But when we are clarifying, for example, if we are affirming what is already known, that this is the popular view, or this is what the public is saying in the public hearing, we are not undermining it, we are affirming that public process. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us. Just coming back to studio, Mr. Lamola says that they were just merely affirming, what is already known, that there is a parliamentary process going on, and they do respect it. But my question is, are they not the majority party even in Parliament? Doesn't it mean that whatever they say will actually end up being what goes down?
Well, actually, democracy is about numbers. So you should not hold it against the ANC because they have numbers. If you have to defeat them and you don't have numbers, you must defeat them at the level of logic. The force of logic should be, and the supremacy of ideas. And those ideas must be about advancement, about black people, should be about redress and all that. But I also want to state there's a certain level of dishonesty by some parties who participate in debates. It is a known fact that COPE leader, Monsieur Lekota, has also been crying in public, stating his views on the issue of land. So there is nothing wrong in parties doing that. President Ramaphosa spoke as the president of the ANC. He didn't speak as a president of the country when he stated that we as the ANC have come to this determination. So there's nothing wrong, there's nothing different from what he said to what Monsieur Lekota was doing and what other parties have been doing. At least the PAC says it has always been consistent because from its birth, land was always central. So that's why it's actually correct to say that that issue is not an issue to be commended. But it's also important for people to understand that when you talk about the leaders of parliament, you're talking about the speaker. So if the speaker had spoken, then you could argue that the speaker representing parliament has jumped the gun because it has to go through. But President Ramaphosa was speaking as a president of the ANC in the same way that COPE spoke as a president, Monsieur Lekota, as a president of COPE. And most importantly, to be able to separate these issues. But what I find interesting is the backlash. The backlash simply suggests that some people never believe that the ANC can take that position. And the ANC has to explain itself. Why would people not believe this belated backlash? Makes no sense when there was a clear decision in Nasrec in December that the land expropriation would be the way to go. But part of it is because within the ANC, there have been other people, other voices that had suggested that will not happen, probably over the dead bodies.
Well, COPE is here, so they can actually respond themselves. I mean, are you doing anything that's different? I mean, is ANC rather doing anything different to what the COPE leader was doing with regards to speaking out about the land issue?
Now, look, for all this time, we knew the position of ANC, that this is that. But it was also the ANC in parliament as majority party that has come with the decision that let us go and get this process take place to its finality. We were expecting this to happen that way. We're not expecting that in between you just stop it. Because then if ever you just in between you say no, this is the decision. Remember that President Ramaphosa is not just president of the ANC, he's citizen number one. He represents the state. Whatever he says, the state is saying it. Now, when the state says so, after spending all the monies to say that we are going to get the feeling of the people, it is like we were just been, pulling wool over our heads. Decision has been finalized and so on. Or actually, I would regard this as a waste of taxpayers' money in the first place. Why did we have to do it? We shouldn't have even started doing it.
Well, according to Mr. Lamola, he was saying that what's happening now, they're just actually echoing the sentiments that have actually come up during the public hearings, and that they will still consider what other public hearings like the one happening this weekend will actually produce. If I just come to you, Mr. Malameja, some people were saying that the ANC is actually hiding behind the Constitution as a scapegoat to actually cover up their lack of service delivery on this land issue.
I think the other thing we must take this opportunity before I come straight to that, to clear COPE. ANC had Lekota. That is their responsibility to have these processes. From Lekota, they could not just be mum without saying what is the decision of Lekota. What they are saying, indeed, they are affirming what has been said in Lekota to say we are going to implement this. Therefore, COPE must rest assured that the ANC is going to win even in the parliament after they shall have followed proper procedures constitutionally wise. You are going to be beaten nicely, but what we are seeing your leader doing in a form of creating confusion on the what you call is going to be defeated in the parliament. Coming to your point, the ANC never hid it on this. The ANC has got the responsibility unlike this other political party, will just speak for the sake of speaking, so to gain popularity. ANC is to ensure that whatever action they do, they know the consequences of that. So by saying let's follow this procedure, they are saying we are in line with the constitution, we are doing the consultation. From the consultation, we'll go back to the government, we'll go back to the parliament and do it in a right way that when COPE, the DA and the rest want to go to court, they find that the ANC have followed nearly every procedure that is required to arrive at a particular date.
And Mr. Mufokeng, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that the ANC is hiding behind the Constitution, or is it just a matter of following protocols and processes for this parliamentary process to be credible?
If you look at the current situation, our view is that most of the parties are taking the land question as the electioneering tool. It is said popularity, popular view. It is interesting to hear Mr. Lamola saying he's reacting from what the people are saying on the ground. And as PAC, we've been advocating for the land restoration. It is not for electioneering or campaigning, it's a principle that we died for. It is also interesting to see that Comrade Ramaphosa, ironically, was involved in the drafting of the Constitution. He is not admitting to the fact that they erred in terms of the land question when they encapsulate the issue of the land into property clause. I think that is hypocrisy. ANC is hypocritical. All the parties in parliament, they are hypocritical about this issue. We are looking and observing very cautiously and very interested in the process that is taking place in parliament or the review committee. Why? It's because the language you get from KwaZulu-Natal, from Sibasa and everywhere is that the people on the ground speaking vernacular are saying we need the land. And the land is for both spiritual and material interest. Yes, there are people who are in majority. If they follow their so-called clip-down charter thing, it is still going to be a problem because the basic document of the ANC reject the land question. And what separated the ANC and the PAC was basically the land question. After 58 years, actually, Ramaphosa his announcement is belated because the issue was introduced by Comrade Zuma when he realized that the Freedom Charter is just hypocritical, does not address the essence or the crux of the problem of the African people. So I just wanted to emphasize that the people are still, the political parties are still using the land question as something like a beauty contest, etc., and so on. But for the Pan-Africanist Congress, we died for that. If you look at the people executed only for this, you will realize that it is not for parliamentary niceties, but it is the principle. So I'm saying all the parties are just hypocritical on this matter, the matter that is we consider as life and death. You see it on the TV, how the people become very, very emotional about the issue. But
and it also seems as though private land won't be touched much at all. Let me just take a last round of statements as we conclude.
Well, Lamola said the ANC statement is a signal, which actually is positive, if it signals that there will be a change. And secondly, the question that you raised, whether it will touch white land, because what you also find in the ANC is the choice of selecting easy victories. But what we cannot shy away from is that it cannot be right that black majority find itself always congested in the country of their birth. So that's the first thing. And secondly, the ANC must also make sure that on this there's only one language, and the people on the ground are very clear. And even if you were to read the statement by Ramaphosa, it's a very double speak. On one end is a recognition that the ANC, the constitution is inadequate. On the other, he talks about there's a growing body of opinion that suggests that the constitution as it is can work. So on this matter, it will be very important for the drafters of the formulation that they make sure that it is clear, but most importantly, that the process itself must be more administrative, not judicial, because if it has to go through the courts, then you're going to end up with the courts being part of the problem. So it's very important that the ANC does not outsource this responsibility to the courts. It is in power, it must exercise that power.
In 1 minute, sir.
No, I think we must not create a notion that there's certain land that is not going to be touched. All land that is needed is going to be touched. And as long as it's not active, and there are people who are willing to activate it in a form of economic activities, is going to be touched. And we support that for the purpose that is going to benefit the masses and nothing else.
Former Major?
For the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, we will be very happy if all parties agree in terms of the restoration of the land to the African people. As to the modalities of other people benefiting or minorities, etc. and so on, it will be a process like the very expropriation or we call it referendum, etc. and so on and so forth. But in the Constitution, there must be a principle established that the land belongs to the African people, and of course, the benefit will be for all of us. We are not going to discriminate as Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, and it must be clear to everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Nkwani.
Yep. Well, the crux of this debate has always been, should Section 25 be amended or not? And as Congress of the People, we've always maintained that the Constitution at its current form does allow for expropriation with compensation and even without compensation. And I heard the President yesterday agreeing to that it does allow that. So if that is the case, if it does allow for expropriation with compensation or without compensation, why do we amend it? You see, because it does allow it. You see, then the Constitution further says that Parliament must come with legislative plans to make sure that that does happen. And this is what we seem to be failing. So all we need is not to change that Constitution, because it does allow that, is to get legislative instruments that will assist to make sure that
it's done in a lawful manner, if we can put it that way.
What the Constitution says should be done must be done.
Yes.
So that is that.
Thank you very much to our esteemed panelists. That's where we leave it for tonight. My colleague Harold Bopalam was up next with your Prime Business. From myself and the Prime Time crew, Salang Letsohofetz.